What's good, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to part 4 of What If Deku Had Ultra Instinct. All I can say if you made it this far is, honestly, congratulations. And with that said, I hope you guys go on to enjoy the 4th installment of this series. Bye!
Hey Ross, sauce it up.
Alright, before I get into this, I just have to preface this by saying that it's been about 2 days since I recorded the last part of the series, so I might be a little rusty when it comes to the material and things, and some things that I say might just genuinely not be right. And the reason for that is because I refuse to go back and watch like 1 hour of content just to be kept up. I know I left off with Deku and Todoroki fighting, so we're just gonna pick off here. And if you're here for the movie experience, then welcome. I'm extremely unprofessional, and it'll always be like that. Anyways though, hopping back into the fight, Deku would be like, too slow, as Todoroki just looks at his direction and then proceeds to, kind of have like this growl look on his face. Deku from here would simply activate full howling as he rushes towards the direction of Todoroki, and he would shoot an ice geyser right at the direction of Deku. Deku would jump to the top of it before then smashing his fist at the very top of it and then kind of like planting himself with the ice. From here, Izuku would do a backflip and begin sliding down the wall of ice all the way towards Todoroki, as Todoroki would be shocked, being like, how did he? And Deku would get shot with more ice by Todoroki as mid-air he changes trajectories, lands behind Todoroki, keep that in mind, behind him, and proceeds to hit him with the 1-2 combo, sending Todoroki flying back on his butt straight on the ground, with him having to catch himself with his ice before Deku simply would walk up over to him, and Todoroki, in a moment of like desperation, would shoot his fire side towards the direction of Deku. Deku, seeing this, would immediately dodge out of the way as Endeavor would begin yelling out, "Shota!" Being extremely excited as he would have in the original. However, the main difference here is Izuku's not about to go over to him and be like, oh my god, what's wrong? Why are you not? Nope, none of that. He simply looks at Todoroki, who's already pretty much defeated himself psychologically, before going to him and kicking him one good time square in the jaw, sending him flying out of the arena and crashing through the ice barrier that he laid. As Deku, from here, would be laid to be the winner. And following this, Izuku would have one last opponent to face. Katsuki Bakugo, his childhood bully. Ever since Izuku could remember, Bakugo's been picking on him since he was a kid and discovered his quirk. Things just changed. I mean, one day they were hanging out, and while Izuku wasn't exactly the bestest friend of Bakugo and he may have never always been the nicest, Bakugo was a childhood friend of his. But after Izuku got his quirk, Bakugo started, instead of looking down on him, being angry at him all the time. He never understood why, but I guess now he finally gets to have a bit of closure by beating Bakugo. That said though, what would end up going down is essentially everybody would have their own matches until eventually the finals would come down. Now the final match would be between Katsuki Bakugo and Todoroki, or no, not Todoroki, but Midoriya. So what I end up seeing happening here, realistically, is Izuku, he does his things, he's in the waiting area, he gets like congratulated by all his friends and stuff. Inko would definitely make sure to send him a call. He'd be like, Izuku, you better make sure to be safe, yada, 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 yada. While, Bakugo would simply just be like sitting there in the dark, like with his hands crossed or something, like thinking to himself how he's going to beat Deku, knowing about Izuku's dodging quirk. So that's already going to be a problem for Bakugo. However, he has been training on a special move that should get under Izuku's skin. So he's pretty much just preparing himself mentally, and eventually the time would come where they would both meet each other in the arena. Izuku would look towards Bakugo before asking, this is going to determine who's stronger, me or you. And I just hope that there isn't that many hard feelings when I wipe the floor with you. Bakugo would smirk before saying, you always were cocky right after you got your quirk, but I'm going to put you back in your place. You're nothing but a quirkless Deku before, and now you're going to be worthless, even with a quirk. As Bakugo looks towards the direction of Deku, and Deku would get into his fighting stance saying, I'm ready then. activating full cowling, as Bakugo would simply watch as Izuku's aura would change. He would get that same Omen Ultra Instinct aura around himself, as Bakugo would begin questioning how he's going to make this happen. He would keep his distance, and Deku would charge in. Bakugo would shoot an explosion, sending himself into the air, as in a flash, with using one arm, he would keep himself blasted in the air, as with the other one, he would begin charging up an AP shot as he would shoot multiple blasts at Deku's direction. Deku would dodge them all effortlessly, and Bakugo would just think to himself, damn, he dodges those too. He lands down on the ground and begins saying he's not going to be able to dodge these. He runs in towards Deku and begins shooting full powered explosions at the direction of Deku, which Deku would essentially just be standing there and like slightly moving out of the way of these explosions that are massive. Keep in mind, these are not some baby explosions that he can simply dodge and weave. No, Deku had to like jump and leap in strides to dodge these attacks. So Deku would do just that. And so Bakugo, after everything, would be like, that should have got him. But Deku would simply look. As soon as the smoke would clear, he would flick his fingers and all the smoke would be blasted away, as Bakugo's eyes would widen and say, how did you? But Deku would rush in and begin to pound on this man Bakugo, sending a punch straight to the side of Bakugo's face. From there, he would send a knee to Bakugo's stomach, send an uppercut to his face, and then do a flip kick in the air as he would knock Bakugo down to the ground. Bakugo would get extremely angry at this before he turns around and shoots a full power explosion at Deku, which Deku like kind of Matrix style dodges. And from here, he looks towards Bakugo before saying, that's it, Bakugo, you're done. Give up. And from here, Bakugo would look at him with an angry expression as Izuku charges up two fingers and flicks his Air Force attack at him, sending him flying off the stage, leading to Izuku Midoriya being announced as the winner. Following these events, we have Izuku ended up cheering with his classmates, and everybody would pretty much be having a good time, except for the exclusions of Todoroki and Katsuki, since Bakugo's mad and Todoroki's salty about what went down, and he still hasn't gotten over his daddy issues, so he's not even going to be going to Endeavor for his pro hero agency. Instead, he's going to go to somebody else just to spite him, the number 3 hero, whoever that is. That said, though, Izuku would end up getting the medal and being told that he did a great job, and people would overall be extremely happy with the results of this year's UA Sports Festival. That said, what ends up following after this is Izuku would just, he goes out to eat with his mom Inko, they have a pretty good day, and his dad calls him up being like, what's good, sport? Like, you did a great job, yada yada, as you guys would expect. That said, the very next day at school, when Izuku would report to the class, Aizawa would just be sitting there sleeping in his bag as usual, and Uraraka walks over to Deku being like, hey Deku, that was some performance back there. Izuku smiles and says thank you for, the good wishes, and then he looks to Uraraka before telling her that, she actually did amazing against Bakugo, saying that it was a shame that she couldn't pull it through, but he was proud of her. Uraraka would simply be like, oh, thanks. And from here, everybody would be informed of the fact that they need to pick their hero names, as well as also needing to pick who they're going to be going for in terms of their agencies. Now, when it comes to hero names, I want you guys to actually comment it down below with a hashtag and then the hero name that you guys want in all caps. Whoever it is that I pin on the comment for today is going to be the winner, and you get like a cookie, I guess. All right, a virtual cookie is your prize. That said, though, comment away, and whoever wins. Best of luck. That said, though, when it comes to Izuku's agency and stuff like that, keep in mind part 1 when I had explained to you guys that Izuku would inevitably end up meeting Gran Torino. Yep, this is the arc. And keep in mind how this time Shigaraki actually was able to get away. Yeah, that means Hosu City, Stain, and the Nomu incident is actually going to be happening in this series. Something that never at all happens in most of my other series. But before we can get into that, I have to cover Izuku and All Might talking to each other and discussing Gran Torino. This time around, All Might would definitely explain to Izuku why he's so scared of him and the things that, Gran Torino did to him while they were training. Izuku would be kind of scared of Gran Torino just based off of these tales that All Might would tell him, and the day that he would finally arrive after getting off of the train, Izuku walks in, knocks at the door, and just lets himself in. But when he walks in, he sees Gran Torino laid down on the floor with ketchup on him, and he's passed out. Izuku immediately rushes to him using full cowling, asking, "Old man," tapping him in the face, being like, "Old man, are you okay? Are you okay?" He immediately whips out his phone and begins dialing 911 before Gran Torino begins chuckling, saying, Toshinori's told me you were like this. And, he gets up and Deku's like, you're alive? And Gran Torino's like, of course I'm alive. What do you think I am, a fossil? I mean, I might look like one, but this old bag still got a couple of moves to left to show, before he then begins using his jet quirk to blast around and try to hit Izuku. Except upon the first hit that Gran Torino tries to land on Izuku, it's as if Izuku simply dodged out of the way effortlessly. Gran Torino was not able to touch this man. From here, Izuku's closed his eyes, activated full cowling 5%, and it was as if it was child's play for Deku. He just began dodging out of the way in full Goku fashion. And as soon as Gran Torino saw that, he would be quite shocked, thinking to himself that his quirk is way more impressive than what he would have ever imagined. He never thought somebody along these lines could ever exist, always thinking that Tsunade was going to be the best at dodging his attacks, but this kid, he makes it look effortless. He's not looking forward in time, his body's just moving on his own. It's incredible. Following this, Gran Torino pretty much just gives up his assault on Midoriya, understanding he's not going to hit him. And so he would pretty much end up telling Izuku that that was one good workout, before then revealing that Gran Torino ended up smashing his microwave in that onslaught, looking to Izuku and becoming very angry at that, saying, you smashed my microwave, with Izuku being like, dude, I just stayed in the same spot practically, I just dodged your hits. You never even told me I was going to be having a dodge. And Gran Torino said, whatever boy, let's go get some snacks. From here, he goes to buy his candy fish thing or whatever it is that he likes, a microwave, and Izuku just sticks back home. He really is just chilling there. He sits there reading a couple of magazines, and Gran Torino would eventually walk in the room. What ends up happening following that would essentially be that for the next couple of 3 days, I suppose is a good amount of number, Gran Torino and Deku would simply work on his one-for-all usage and how things have been going, with Toshinori, aka All Might. And Izuku would explain that things have actually been going great. All Might is a phenomenal teacher. He teaches them things that he never thought he would have ever had the opportunity to learn. Not only that, but the quirk of One for All actually helped his own personal quirk advanced, with Gran Torino being like, oh, so you did have a quirk before this. Izuku would say, of course he did. And from here, Gran Torino would ask how exactly his quirk works, asking if it has anything to do with that dodging ability. Izuku would say that that's precisely it, explain it to him, and from here, Gran Torino would ask Izuku why he hasn't gone up in more percentages when it comes to full cowling, asking him what's holding him back. Izuku would question this, being like, I don't really know. And for the next couple of hours, if not 2 days, he would pretty much just spend that time wondering to himself why he can't surpass this barrier of simply 27%. He should at least be at 40 from what he sees. Look at his body type, it's shredded. Izuku would wonder this, and for the next couple of days would simply end up trying to figure this out, realizing that it was sort of a mind block. For some reason, Izuku kind of had it in the back of his mind that he never truly wanted to surpass All Might. But now that he realized it, this mind block was gone. And now Izuku now has full access to that of 40% of full cowling now, with the fact that he now realized that he needs to become his own hero. Not like All Might, he needs to use his quirk as if it's his own, and not a gift, not something that should be idolized or looked at as the greatest thing in the universe. Izuku now knowing this and having this thought would become a greater hero overall. And the day would eventually come when Gran Torino and Izuku go out for night patrol at Hosu City. Just like in the original, a gigantic flying Nomu would bust in on the train and Gran Torino would kick it off using his jet quirk. Izuku, seeing this, jumps through the hole that Gran Torino left behind, and as he's falling onto the ground, Izuku would use a quirk that he had never thought could be possible. He didn't know that One for All came with extra quirks. He would use Black Whip. And from here, Izuku would catch himself on a light pole before swinging himself back up and thinking to himself, But Ultra Instinct is on, and his body is, like I said, moving on its own. Izuku has no thought process of what's going on. Izuku's body is just doing things naturally. And with that block out of his head, Izuku is now able to not only access 40% consciously, but fully access a grand total of 70%, moving at speeds even greater than All Might in his prime. Listen to that, All Might in his prime Keep in mind, Ultra Instinct is something that lets your body move on its own subconsciously. Whenever he tries using full Cow Link, he thinks about it too hard, thinking about the egg not exploding in the microwave, keep that in mind. But with this body just using whatever it can use, it's now using it at full optimization. Like he's doing things fully optimal. You know what I mean? Like my man JPG Coaching, in case you guys know who that is, but you might not, you might. But anyways, essentially Izuku would proceed to blow by the Nomu and arrive right in front of it, with Gran Torino being far behind. And Izuku, as soon as he arrives to it, would punch the Nomu straight through a building, before the Nomu would screech out in pain and Izuku would land right on top of it, beginning to essentially pound the Nomu's face in until he grabs it by one of the wings and sends it flying as high as he possibly can, literally into the next city. From here, Izuku would look to Gran Torino, as Gran Torino would smile and think that All Might made the singular most perfect decision he could have possibly made. This kid is a monster. He is a beast. And that's just putting it lightly. I mean, Izuku hasn't even reached his full potential, but the things that he's displaying right now, it's insane. That said though, the Ida situation, it's happening. Ida currently just got stabbed in the back, and Izuku would begin thinking back to Ida and his whole situation. And once he thinks about this, he's like, wait, Ida, he went to Manu, the hero killer. I've read about it on the way here. He begins running towards alleyways, just running as fast as he can, looking to reach in every single one. And right as Stain was about to stab into Ida, Izuku jumps in the way and kicks the knife right out of Stain's hand, grabbing the hero native and Ida, both respectively, throwing them on top of the roof as Izuku lands back down in front of Stain, and Stain would look at him before licking his blade, causing Ida to be paralyzed like usual. And from here, Izuku would say that he's not going to be harming anybody else for the rest of his life, as Stain would say that the only person who's allowed to put him down is a true hero like All Might. Izuku would look at him before saying, well then I guess it's lucky that I'm his successor, before blitzing by him and knocking him out in just awesome anime fashion. He blitzes by him and he holds one arm up as Stain's body just falls flat to the ground, and this man is then had to pick up by a hospital cruiser thingy-majigger that would send him straight to Tartarus. This time he doesn't end up puncturing his lung or anything, or even having that iconic moment where Toga, Dabi, Spinner, and the rest of the other villains who end up joining due to Stain's influence even happening when it comes to the League of Villains. So they end up losing out on a bunch of members, but from here Izuku would actually be one of the main people and key players to actually taking out the Nomus, right as Endeavor would have arrived. Keep in mind, he doesn't get there with Shoto, and Izuku essentially is simply there to help out with the taking out of the Nomus, which results in Gran Torino actually being extremely proud of Izuku, and Izuku being a huge helping hand when it comes to the Nomu cleanup. The city would thank Izuku, and just like usual, Endeavor would be the one to ultimately receive credit for the taking down of all those Nomus. Even though we all know rightfully so, the credit should have all gone to Izuku Midoriya. But it's life. Things ain't fair, and so is this episode. That said though, speaking of episode, if you guys are actually watching this on part 4, I'm going to be dropping a Naruto What If really soon, and it's going to be called What If Naruto Had a Particle Release. If you guys want to check that out, there probably might be a link out by the time that this goes out. Okay. Because part 2 came out today, which is Thursday. Part 3 comes, no, it won't be out. It'll be out on Saturday though. But yeah. Anyways though, back into the story. Everybody else would end up finishing their internships, and just like many of you guys were probably expecting, Izuku would essentially just kind of go back. I mean, there's no real events to cover. Shigaraki never ends up getting a couple of extra members, and when they all go back and are told about their final exams and stuff like that, it ends up taking place. I'm pretty sure we can all agree that the final exams arc is boring up to the point where they actually have to face the teachers, and nobody really wants to hear about any of the extra battles. So we're essentially just gonna skip through all of the all the formalities and go straight to the Izuku and Bakugo team up fight against Bakugo. Now we know Izuku in this version and Bakugo aren't exactly on the best terms, or even on as good of terms as they were in the original, due to Izuku this time actually outclassing Bakugo. He's a lot more salty and isn't prepared to listen to a single thing that Izuku would say when he's trying to basically helped them win. Bakugo would tell him that he's just an extra and he has no right to, tell him what to do. Water break. Some good water. Before, rushing off and going over to try to fight All Might himself. But as we saw in the original, that didn't play out too well for Bakugo, did it? The man ended up getting kneed in the jaw, kneed in the stomach, and flung around like an absolute ragdoll. All Might manhandles this man Bakugo in the original, and I see no reason why he wouldn't do the same in this version. So, Bakugo, I'm sorry to say this, but rest in peace! And, eventually, Zuko comes in to the picture, and All Might would look at him with a smile before saying, "Young Midoriya, I hope you're able to put up more of a challenge than usual." Izuku would instantly power up Ultra Instinct, Omen, mind you, and he would then look towards the direction of All Might before saying, "You have no idea." He closes his eyes and from here taps into 70% full cowling for a brief second before just looking at All Might would end up kind of rattling himself as that thought comes back into his mind and he's only able to push it towards 40%, thinking to himself, damn it, why does this always happen? I need to get past this. This is the day where this changes. I need to stop idolizing All Might and just view him as another hero. He may be my trainer, but this is a roadblock I have to overcome. Like for part 5.